Welcome to part 2 of the 3-part series, 3-digit by 1-digit division. For this question, don't build it yet. What I'd like you to do is picture it in your head. So we have 484 that we would like to divide into 2 piles. So just look at that number and picture the base 10 blocks, just the hundreds for now, just the hundreds in your head. How many hundreds are you seeing altogether? 4. So imagine those 4 100s in your head and split those 4 100s into 2 piles. How many hundreds are there in each pile? Did you say 2? Excellent visualization. What's the value of 2 100s in each group? That's 200. And if I put 200 in the first group and 200 in the second group, how much have I used up altogether? 400. And we started with 484 and we used up 400. How much do we have left? 84. Now go back to visualizing just your tens. How many tens are there altogether? Picture that in your head. There are 8 tens altogether. Now picture taking those 8 tens and splitting them up equally into 2 groups. How many tens are in each group? 4. And what's the value of just the 4 tens in each group? Well, 4 tens has a value of 40. If I have 40 in this group and 40 in the second group, how much have I used up? Well, I've used up 80. And if I started with 84 and I used up 80, how much do I have left? 4. So now we're just going to look at the ones that we have left over. Picture the ones. How many ones are there? There are 4 ones. Now picture splitting the 4 ones up into the 2 groups. How many ones go into each group? 2. And what's the value of 2 ones? 2. So if the first group gets 2 and the second group gets 2, how much have I used up altogether? 4. And if I started with 4 and I used up 4, how much do I have left? 0. So what's the total value of one group, of one pile? I had 2 100s, I had 4 10s, and I had 2 1s. 200 plus 40 plus 2 is 242. So 484 divided by 2 is 242. The next question is a bit of a puzzler. A puzzler is a little bit more challenging, and a puzzler is going to make you think. And because it's a puzzler, give yourself about 2 minutes to play with it, and then come on back here. So the question is 632 divided into 2 piles. So what made this one a puzzler? Let's just kind of work our way through it, and I'll keep record on the screen as we go. So we had 6 100s that we split up into 2 piles. Well, that wasn't much of a puzzler. What's the value of the hundreds in each pile? Well, there's 300 in each pile. If I put 300 in the first pile and 300 in the second pile, I've used up 600. And if I started with 632 and I used up 600, I have 32 left. So obviously that wasn't the puzzler part. Now let's take a look at the tens. So I've got 3 tens. Now let's split that up. 1 for each pile. Now I've got this 10 that I can't put it into the first pile because the second pile won't have any. So what did you do in order to help solve this? Did you exchange that 10 for 10 ones? Awesome. That's exactly what you needed to do. Let's look at what that looks like when we represent this using just numbers. So how much could you put into each pile before you did any exchanging? Well, we were able to put 110 in each pile. So what's the value of the 10s in each pile right now? I was able to put 10 in each pile. And how much have I used up so far? Well, 10 in the first pile and 10 in the second pile means I've used up 20. If I had 32 and I used up 20, I have 12 left. There's my 2 that I haven't dealt with yet. I have 12 left here. I have 1 10 and 2 1s. But what did you say to do in order to fix that? Oh, that's right. You said exchange this out for 10 1s. So when I did the exchange, how many 1s do I have now? Well, I've got 12 1s. So does this 12 represent the 12 1s I have? Absolutely. So that 12 represents 12 1s, or it represents the 110 and the 2 1s that I started with. Now can I do the splitting up into 2 piles? Absolutely. Let's do that. There we go. And how much do I have in each pile? Well, if I count it up, I have a value of 6 1s in each pile. So if I have 6 in the first pile and 6 in the second pile, how much have I used up? 12. If I had 12 and I used up 12, how many do I have left? 0. And what's the value of each pile? What is 632 divided by 2? It's 316. Excellent. So here's the next question for you. You can go ahead and build it first and then check. You can just picture the base 10 blocks in your head and move them around and then check. Or you can start by representing it the way that I'm doing it on the screen. And then you can always go back and build it to check. So pause the video while you figure out what 326 divided by 2 is. So 3 100s would allow me to put 1 100 in each group and have 1 extra 100 that I can't deal with yet. So 1 100 in each group means each group has a value of 100. If I put 100 in the first group and 100 in the second group, I've used up a value of 200. 326 minus 200, well, that will leave me 1 100, 2 10s, and 6 1s. What did you do in order to make it work? Well, that 1 100 had to be exchanged for 10 10s. So now I have 12 10s. So when I look at that number, I can see the 12 10s in it, and I can see the 6 1s. So if I've got 12 10s and I want to split that up into 2 groups, how many goes into each group? 6 of them. And what's the value of that? 60. And if I put 60 in each group, I've actually used up 120. And if I started with 126 and I subtracted 120, that leaves me 6 1s left. 6 1s divided into 2 groups leaves 3 for each group. And if I put 3 in each group, I've used up 6 and I have 0 left over. And my final answer is 163. Is that what you got? Excellent. So how can I go about checking that I actually solved that correctly? Well, if I have 163, and I've got 2 piles of that, I could add 163 plus 163. So if I have 1 100 and 1 100, that's 2 100s. That's a value of 200. A 60 plus a 60 is 120. And a 3 plus a 3 is 6. And that would equal 326, which is what I started with. Or I could multiply 163 multiplied by 2. 100 times 2 is 200. 60 times 2 is 120. 3 times 2 is 6. And when I add that up, 326. Now, you may have done that a different way, using a different strategy for adding or subtracting those numbers. But what it comes down to is I ended up with 326, whether I added it or I multiplied it using the strategies that I used. We'll see you in the third video.